Charles Mann, owner of AccuShield. This is how you sell without selling out. Rogers that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rogers Healy, and welcome to Rogers That, a podcast dedicated to selling without selling out. And today we have someone I have had the pleasure of being best friends with, one of my best friends for the past 20 years. Like a lot of great friends, we started out on a unique foot. I think we were rivals. We were both what we thought were the big men on campus, and then two heads became one, and a genuine brotherhood and friendship was formed where Baylor and SMU hoofpaw started something special. And over the last 2 decades, Charles Mann and I have had the pleasure and the honor of being at the front row of both of our lives. Sometimes a lot of great stuff, sometimes not some great stuff. But I will tell you that out of all the friends I've ever met in my entire life and all the people I've had the honor of being able to share life with, I will tell you Charles is the most steadfast, consistent, and authentic friend I've ever had. And today, after a couple years of trying to figure out our schedules, I'm so honored to have him on here. And there's a lot of different words I could use as a title from Charles being he's a man of faith. He is a business leader. He's an entrepreneur. He's a visionary. He is a scholar. He is talented to a point where it's almost uncomfortable in sports and theater. He can sing. He can do all of it. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you that out of all these things, the one thing I know Charles is most proud to be called is dad, where Charles entered the ranks of fatherhood in late 2023 and has jumped in feet first. And so much so to where before we started, Charles asked if this was vomit on my snap shirt. And yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not mine. So, Charles, I'm so proud of you, and I'm excited to learn about your story today, and I'm glad that you could be a part of the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Raj.
Yeah. How much sleep did you get last night?
Last night I got a little bit more than usual. Charlie he's pretty much down from 11 to 6:30, 6 o'clock. So he's a sleeper.
Wow.
He's that much. My wife has, and we hope to have more babies. And she has made the comment on numerous occasions that he's an easy baby. He cries when he's hungry. That's about it.
Dude, I was at lunch with someone today, and I told him that the best sleep I've had in my entire life were the first 3 months of Henley because we had a night nanny, and then the night nanny sleep, and then all of a sudden I was like, "This is great." And then month 4, I was like, "What is sleep regression? This is like a pledge ship." But yeah, today's conversation is about obviously edifying you and telling your story as just the right kind of leader, the right kind of business owner, and you've been a disruptor, and I used to watch you work for Ethicon and J&J, and just a creature habit kind of slugging through, just a really competitive industry. And where you're at now as an owner and a founder and somebody who has really made an imprint. Why don't we just lead by saying, the story behind your path to influence in the world of healthcare?
Yeah. Coming out of school, went to Baylor, and really didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of school. Thought I wanted to be an investment banker. Went to New York and found out really quickly that I wasn't that good at math, and I was outclassed in many areas. I was a relatively decent finance student at Baylor, but recognized I think my skill set was more on the sales side. And really the entrepreneurship side. And so spent 10 years with J&J Ethicon, incredible company that took a chance on a young kid coming out of school, and had a lot of windshield time. So they gave me this territory that was enormous. Did well there, moved to Dallas, and went in and out of hospitals for a few years there until I moved to Atlanta to really work in the senior living space. And really growing up, I think kind of what brings us all together was I had an entrepreneur father. And he, at the time, in the late 80s, wanted to provide a way that seniors could age in place without having to go to a skilled nursing facility, which if you've been in a skilled nursing facility, it's not really where you want to spend your final days. So he provided a place.
What's the term called? Skilled
Nursing, nursing home, which would be
Got
sort
it.
of a synonymous name. And so he created a place where residents that may suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's could live, but have dignity and live in more of a Ritz-Carlton type of home versus a hospital bed, with linoleum floors and fluorescent lighting, and I just no way to spend your final days. And so, um, at the time, he had no instruction manual. He just did, failed, and continued to get better and better and evolve and innovate and evolve and innovate and built a pretty awesome business. And at the time, I sort of witnessed this from the ground up, from really a yellow legal pad with his ideas, all the way to raising money, to building a building, to selling a building, to expanding, to providing healthcare to residents as they age in place. And really, it was something that I sort of learned through osmosis. It's kind of the kid who has the dad as a coach, right? Who just kind of learns football through dinner table conversations and spending time with his dad on the field, summers and holidays. And so that's what I did for senior living. So I knew I wanted to get back into assisted living, and really more the development side excited me. And moved to Atlanta in 2011, which, if you know anything about sort of the banking environment in 2011, banks weren't lending. And so, really spent my time on the operations side. And through that is really where the idea of AccuShield spawned. And it was very simple. In senior living today, the residents that we raise our hand to take care of are as vulnerable as children in an elementary school. But you can't just walk into an elementary school these days and go into a classroom and just sit there and sort of watch class and observe class. That's not okay. There is a process. They have to know who you are. In many cases, you have to go through a sex offender check or a criminal background check, or identify yourself as a family member. And that's not the way it is in senior living. Security is not where it should be. And so 10 years ago, having witnessed that in my father's communities, I wanted to change that. And so that's really where the idea of AccuShield spawned. Was I need to know as an operator, because these residents are my responsibility. I need to know who's coming and going at all times. And I need to understand not just who they are, I need to know where they're going, and potentially credentials of what type of provider they are. And so, AccuShield again was created out of an issue and a need within senior living. And so that's the story of how the idea started. And then from there, met Alan Barnes, who's my partner, business partner, and we built a business. So that was 10 years ago.
So I'll never forget when Charles told me he was moving to Atlanta. It was such a, even still, it was like losing a family member. And obviously it all worked out as it's supposed to. And that's how you met his wife. Did you feel like, as someone who was working towards the family business and helping something grow, what was that burning desire in your heart or your head or something where you're like, man, I have to go do this? Where you had, like, the Mann house is obviously, it's a staple in the Southeast, and you guys, your family is responsible for, countless families' lives being changed. And I'm assuming that the, flight out there, or the drive out there, was, let's go scale this business that my dad grew from the ground up. And what was that kind of pivotal moment where you had to, I don't know if I want to say bet on yourself, but you couldn't run the other way. And what was that internal conflict like, if you even had it at all?
Yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for my father, who, as you know, is, gosh, it's almost been 4 years since he passed. I had a great respect for what he accomplished, and the entrepreneur that he was, most of which, actually all of which, was told to me by people other than him. He never talked about himself. But when I would mention his name in conversation with anyone who knew senior living in this area, they were very familiar with him being really sort of like a George Washington type of senior living here in the South. And, I knew I just wanted to help. And, I still, at that point in time, didn't really understand what an entrepreneur was. I had a lot of ideas, but really hadn't dipped my toe in the water as far as entrepreneurship goes. And quite honestly, as I moved out here and I worked with my dad, as much as I wanted to feel like an entrepreneur, I wasn't. My dad was the entrepreneur. I was helping, and that was great. but that did not quench the thirst that I had of starting my own business and not relying on a foundation that my dad laid, which was phenomenal and was very grateful for that. But I needed, for me, to to spread my wings and branch outside of the family business. And so spent 2 years there before I branched out to start AccuShare.
Do you remember the first time you said something to your dad that you were going to go and start something?
Yeah, my dad. It's interesting when you watch someone from afar, you don't see some of the things that you see as you get closer. And um, I think like any father son, I came in there guns blazing. I wanted to change things for the better, and I was trying to change things that had been done that way for 30 years, and it was met with quite a bit of resistance, and that was something that was hard for me to swallow. When I look back on it, I probably should have approached it far differently, and I think I've learned from that, and that um, you know I think listening and just sort of quietly um, debating internally before you make actions and before you say things is probably the better way to disrupt than just to go in there and start beating the bushes and changing everything that you see fit. So, um, that was a moment when I realized a lot. Working with my dad.
Do you have advice for people that potentially are in a situation where they're working with their families and maybe it's a completely different industry, maybe it's something that you know can help disrupt the industry that their family's already a part of? Is there a suggested path you would give them?
Wish I had had more conversation with my dad prior to me joining. Um,
Before you joining your father's company?
yeah, I think there was probably some things that we could have hashed out um, prior to. Like what is my role? How do I fit into the company? You know, where's the hierarchy there? Right? I'm the owner's son, but I certainly don't want to be coattails. And I think the question that I should have asked is, I feel like an entrepreneur. I'm in an entrepreneurial business. You started this, but how do I add value? And that's a that's a deep question that I think if I could have understood that a little bit better, it would have helped me early on. And I think, again, that advice would be slow down. Um, I probably could have not fallen into some of the issues had I on the front end probably negotiated and ironed out. But sometimes you don't know until you go. So I just wish we'd had some more conversation prior to me joining
Hmm.
the family business because a lot of dynamics.
Ready for a loaded question? You hope Charlie works with you in 25 years?
I think more than anything, I want him to respect me and I want him to know that I worked hard um, to hope and to provide for him. I think when I decided to leave the family business, I think my father was embarrassed by it. He to some degree would parade me around and introduce me to people, and because he loved me and he was proud of me, and he was, he it was fun for him to explain to people that I moved to Atlanta to work in the family business. And when I decided to transition to do my own thing, I think there was an out of body experience for him when he probably was in a similar situation, not necessarily with a family business, but he wanted to work with his dad and he had started something. And my dad made the decision to move to Atlanta and start something different. And I think he saw a lot of him and me when I made that transition. And he knew that I needed to prove to him and to myself that I could do it on my own. And that's just real talk. Everybody's like, well, you don't need to prove anything to your dad. I did. And that's a big part of what drove me in many cases because my dad was a stud. And the idea of not doing everything I can to be successful and be successful in my own route or my own right was a big importance. And so, that's probably some advice that I would put out there.
What an honorable guy. Um, let's get back into AccuShield. So
Yeah,
again, athlete, right? You're a finance guy, you're a sales guy. All of a sudden, you're a technology guy, and you enter
yeah,
into a space that maybe you don't have the background in it, but you had to go and develop a
right.
product, right? Prove that the product worked, sell the crap out of the product, make sure the product continues to work. But maybe walk us through that roadmap. You're an inventor, right? I mean, like, you're an entrepreneur, but like you were a creator, you're an inventor, and all of a sudden you're in the technology space. What was that journey like? Obviously, what's it still like? You still have to
Yeah,
obviously.
I knew nothing about technology. I still don't, quite honestly. Um, I can sort of regurgitate and memorize some of the things that our tech folks tell me and know a little bit about it, but I'm certainly not a coder, and I'm certainly not an architect, a technology architect, or a product designer. It still baffles me why it takes so long to do things. And you would think after 10 years and recognizing that it generally takes 3 times as much money and 3 to 4 times longer than you expect, I would get used to that. I haven't. It still doesn't make sense to me. Um, and I think at the time when this was started, I had no clue what really went into developing not only a product, but something that has really never been invented before, the way that we invented it, which was a kiosk designed specific to senior living. And finding the right hardware, finding the right developers, finding the right CTO and product people, and how to write requirements, and then how to sell a recurring revenue model to communities, and all of the things that go into supporting the customer and reducing churn, and creating a brand. All of those things were new to me, and uh, it was really fun figuring it out. And I still don't have it figured out. I think that's the wisdom behind all entrepreneurs, is you'll never figure it out, but you can continue to try as hard as you can to do that. And so, I would say if you're someone out there that has an idea, gosh, it's the greatest thing on earth to develop and dream. Shout out to Ken Boa, one of my father's mentors, and he said his heaven is infinite creativity with zero frustration for the glory of God. Whoa. I think that's what my heaven's going to be like. It's going to be developing immediately with no frustration and just have this incredible journey. It's one of the most incredible to me. Um, it was an awesome quote from him. So I think about that all the time.
That's awesome. You remember the first time someone believed in you as the entrepreneur and as the creator of AccuShield?
Yeah. There's a few people that come to mind. I'd probably have to say Todd Petty was one of the first, who's still a friend of mine. He was the COO of a large senior living company, and I went and I pitched him the idea, and he loved the idea. I'm like, really? You like it? And then I went to someone else, K, and I can't pronounce his last name. It's like 50 letters, um, and he sort of said the same thing. He's like, you're going to change the industry. This is absolutely 100% what every community needs to provide the safest environment possible for the residents.
Mm.
And I'd continue to get that feedback. And even 10 years later, I had a meeting yesterday. I got the same feedback on a new product that we're developing that I'll maybe have the chance to share with you a little bit, as sort of Valentine's approaches, and we're launching it on Valentine's Day. I got the same feedback, and so it's like it's the most euphoric kind of dopamine rush when you share an idea with someone, and they love it and they encourage you to build it.
Hmm. Which, ironically, you're the guy for almost everyone else that is you're the believer. You're the guy that gives people confidence, and I think that's one of the reasons
Thanks.
you're such a great dad.
Thank you.
Um, Tell me, what was your job title? Not literally, but if you were to hire right now, right, the job that you did the first year versus the job that you do now, a decade plus in the industry that is highly, highly volatile, right? You got to continue to evolve or you get crushed. But what was your job title 10 years ago? What's your job title now?
Um, I think my job title, when we started the business, Alan and me, we made the decision. Alan was going to make sure that we had enough money in the bank. I was going to make sure that the product was right and that people bought it. I would say glorified sales guy would be part of it. Um, I don't like operations. I am not good at that. It frustrates me, and it's incredibly important. I just, that's not my thing. I like to be the dreamer and the executor. But you can't have a business without good ops people, and I have a huge respect for those folks. Um, the the role for me now and the title is strategy. Um, we have a pretty good sized base business in senior living and skilled nursing and hospitals and
Tell
surgery
us, like,
centers.
the numbers are insane. Tell us some of the statistics behind it.
So we have around 7,000 communities and facilities that use AccuShield currently, and continuing to grow that is, each month. And so, I think for us, it's how do you take a base product and then continue to add on to that base product. And so our goal is to own that front desk real estate. Like, we want to own the real estate at the front desk, because when we do that, we can do a lot with it. And there's a lot of surface area to monetize there, and a lot of things that we can solve. One of the things is package management. Imagine the number of Amazon boxes that a senior living community gets. I know how many I get. I mean, I spend so much time dealing with cardboard boxes. Um, think about a community full of seniors where they don't go to the store, they order everything online. So things that you're able to do right there at that front desk, that's just an example. Um, and so we want to get kiosks in communities so that we can help streamline that front desk. And again, at the end of the day, it's safer senior living for us.
Loaded question. You ready? I used to
Yeah.
ask people, like, I'm going to lead by saying I don't think there's such thing as balance when you're truly an entrepreneur. I don't think there's such thing as turning it off,
Yeah.
right? And so I go to bed at night now, and I try to program my dreams, and I try to think about, like, what deals work together, or how can I
Yeah.
go and be the first to do this. With what you're doing, front desk real estate at assisted living facilities, is it hard for you to stop creating? Is it hard for you to go and stop, like, wondering what is the next thing that I can be on the forefront of doing? Where you're talking about the dopamine of someone saying, I get it. Todd Petty saying, I believe it. The guy whose last name was 50 letters long saying that you got to do
Yeah.
this. Is there going to reach a point where you want to be Todd Petty? You want to be the private equity company that is being the shepherd and the finance, or do you want to keep being the idea guy and knowing that you're leap years ahead of everyone else?
I think not everyone has the pain tolerance to start their own business. And I got to tell you, when I was with Johnson & Johnson, like, they take really good care of their people, and I miss some of those things. Like, insurance was incredible. Um, you know,
Company
leave was
car.
incredible. I could leave it all behind and go on a vacation and not think about it.
God.
Versus, I had to sit down with Christy prior to getting married and just told her, this is what my life looks like. You are the most important thing. But as far as turning it off, I it's hard to, but I love it. It's not anything that's like, it's not work, 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 work. It's not work. It's fun. It's being creative. That's the thing I didn't realize growing up, that I loved being creative. That's my favorite thing to do. I love designing and art and stuff like that I just never was able to do or never was around growing up. And I love it. I really love that part of the business. Not really good at it, but I know what looks good. And me trying is what keeps me going every day. I just love new ideas.
Mm.
So, to answer your next question, do I want to be in private equity? Do I want to be an investment banker? Probably not.
Yeah.
Um, I like to be the player. I
Mm,
want to be the player right now. And I
mm,
might not always want to be the player. Maybe I want to be the coach one day, or maybe I want to be a player coach.
mm,
But right now, I want to be a player,
mm.
and I want to play in the game. I want to be in the game, and then at some point, I might sort of graduate to wanting to be the coach and watching other people play the game, and then maybe at some point, I want to be the team owner, right, and be private equity or investment bank or whatever. But right now, that doesn't interest me.
Well, noted. 7,000 communities. How many different families do you feel like you've had an impact on, directly or indirectly? If you had the ballpark,
Individuals or like individual
maybe
families.
people. How many people?
50 million,
So 50 million people.
maybe
You get to
over the last
choose.
10 years.
You
That
get to
probably
choose, and you're allowed. You can choose one story out of 50 million families. What's the one story
I'm
that
gonna
sticks out?
the story that sticks out to me is 2 years in, I got called by an executive director. The executive director is kind of like the principal of a school. And the executive director reached out to me and said, Charles, I know you're tracking all of the visitors that come in to our communities, all the vendors, all the adult children, all the families and that are coming and going. And I know that you're also tracking which residents they're there to see. Can you tell me the residents that aren't getting visitors? Because those are my lonely residents. And
Oh,
I want to make a concerted effort to be in the lives of those residents that may not have a family, may not have a whole lot of friends, may have a deceased spouse. And that right there created a social movement within AccuShield. And we call it hashtag Project Love Meter. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today briefly, because I'm super passionate about it.
mm,
In our data for 7,000 communities, we're recognizing that somewhere between 20 and 30% of residents living in senior living have no family, no friends, and less than one social visit per month. They are isolated and socially disconnected, and potentially they've been forgotten. Those are our parents. And so we've set out as a company to address that. And so in our kiosk, we have 1.4 million volunteers that have registered through AccuShield. We are going to communities and we are finding those residents that don't have families and don't have friends, and they sit in their room by themselves and they watch Wheel of Fortune. And we are creating meaningful connections in 30-minute visits with those people in an effort to create joy in their life. And so that is what we're rolling out February 14th
mm,
is a volunteer management platform that addresses resident isolation
mm,
and social disconnectedness and
mm.
senior living skilled nursing.
Dude,
So the story is behind that. That's what it's the biggest thing that we've done. And it has the greatest potential to impact the lives of seniors.
well, it's I don't have I have my backup cell phone, and
I
coincidentally,
can't.
my backdrop. So my best friend was my grandma,
Yep.
um, and and this is at her facility, but I'll never forget. Yeah, I'm so proud of Charles, but yeah, it's just such a unique environment there. And I tried to go out there once a month or once every 2 months, but ironically, funny enough, my grandma, I called her Nan. She was like the spokesmodel for AccuShield for for a couple hours when they were new. But man, and again, like I'm sure some of y'all hearing this, you're like, damn, what am I doing to actually help? What am I doing to actually, there's no movement really behind real estate or venture capital unless you kind of find people like Charles that you invest in. But that's awesome, man. I'm going to fire off some kind of typical questions that I'm sure you've gotten
Yeah.
a million times over. Best advice you've ever received?
Well, just in life or in regards to business?
Maybe with business.
Okay. if you're going to start a business, find someone who's equally excited about it as you are and go together. I don't think you can do it alone.
Can
Some
that
people
person
have,
gonna be my
but
wife?
I mean, you're kind of an anomaly, Rogers. You've kind of you've figured that out, and I think that that's, kudos to you for being an incredible, marketing genius. You're kind of a savant in that regard. Now, I actually think a lot about your Facebook and Instagram presence from back in the day. I sort of took that same model and inserted it into LinkedIn more than the other social platforms. But um, you know, more is better, and so from a marketing perspective. So anyway, yeah,
Or
I,
as
I would say
Charlie
find
gets
someone that cares as much as you do.
so as Charlie gets older, you're gonna learn this is more. When he wants to like, he'll
More,
start literally when he wants more food. Like Henley, if there's
yeah.
avocado or straw, more. Now it's popsicles and donuts, more. Okay, so as a father and as an entrepreneur, out of all the different gifts you're going to give your children, and maybe starting with Charlie, as a business owner, as a man, as a leader in the community, what's the one gift? What's the one thing that you know that you have relative control over that you want to make sure your children embody as much as any other kid on planet Earth?
The importance of time.
Mm.
I think my business partner, Alan Barnes, who, is my business partner, but also a mentor in many ways, because he's a few years older than me. He's got, a family that's now, all of them have graduated and are off in the working world. As we were starting this business, traveling all over the place and tired and worn out and frustrated and all the things, no matter what it was, we could have a meeting at 8 o'clock and we could have a dinner and we were tired. He was on that plane at 3 a.m. to get back to his kids' sporting events. And he made it a point. When those kids called, he answered. I don't care what we were doing. And he's a model of what it looks like to be a great father, and just super thankful that I've had the opportunity to see that. I mean, the adage, what spells love, Time. I think that's what I can control. So
Well, not to be the guy that just got interrupted, but they literally had no idea.
hey,
It's her debut on the podcast. Hey,
Inley,
hi, Charles. Say hi.
hey,
You
how are
building
you?
a cake?
Do you like donuts?
You want a donut?
Uncle Charles loves donuts.
Charles is really good at donuts.
I'm so good at donuts. I wake up Sunday mornings craving donuts because since I was little, my mom would get Bunky's Donuts. Those of you from Richardson, Texas, I don't think it's still there, but you'll know what I'm talking about if you grew up there.
She's saying Charles. Is that Charles? Can you say Charles? Sorry. It's like that the Canadian Prime Minister was doing like a serious Zoom, and all of a sudden his kid came on and ruined it. Sorry. She's now saying Charles donuts. Sorry, I didn't know they're coming back here. You get to describe out of all the gifts you have, your one superpower in business and leadership. What is it?
Oh man. Encouragement. I think that's my gift, I think.
And now you get to go pick one gift that you maybe don't have, and
Ooh, I like that
you're
one
able to
better.
have it. What's the gift?
Consistency.
Really? Dude, you're one of the most consistent people I've ever met.
But I'm also the most competitive person on the planet, and
Which is
I don't like losing.
consistency.
And yes, but I think when something doesn't go right, instead of just immediately getting a little torqued, or just flat out torqued and pissed,
You're saying
um,
torqued or torqued?
torqued like tight,
I'm just kidding. Yeah, face it. Sorry.
I wish I was, and you can ask some of the folks on the team, I'm consistent in some respects, but I wish I was a little bit calmer in certain situations. I'm a type A person too, which is, again, you put those two things together, it can be fire. So those that know me understand what that is. So I wish I could be a little bit more chill when things maybe don't go my way.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's not your personality type. All right, last question. You get to
Okay.
go and look back in a few decades, and it's your legacy, and you get to think of all the
Yeah.
things you've done in the world, not inside the walls of your house or the walls of your church. And you think about, by that time, the hundreds of millions of families that you've had direct impact on. You think about all the different movements. You think about the amount of people and the amount of hours and the amount of you've brokered love, right? You've done these things that are maybe in the healthcare space. Maybe it's not. But when you think about your legacy, what is your legacy?
And we're talking about business wise.
Yes.
Okay. I still think there needs to be a, a heightened sense of security in senior living.
Hmm.
And it hopefully doesn't get to a point where we have metal detectors. That's not what I'm driving at. There needs to be a emphasis on security in vulnerable environments.
Hmm.
Obviously, elementary schools, but as important to that is senior living. And my mission is to drive that and to continue to take steps forward to make sure that that happens. And so I think when I look back 10, 20, 30 years, whether I'm still involved with AccuShield, if I can hang my hat on the fact that I created a safer environment for seniors, then that's really what this company's mission is and what the purpose behind starting it was all about.
Can I ask a personal question?
Yeah.
Is it hard for you to look back and realize I was a better basketball player than you in the early 2000s?
I mean, Rogers, you have fake calves. So because you have fake calves,
I
you
do
can
not
jump.
have, hello, everyone. I don't have fake calves.
He doesn't have fake calves. He actually has. You had dad calves long before you were a dad. You like all of a sudden as a dad you get calves, and Rogers had these giant calves, and there were some people that were jealous of him, and they were like, "You got fake calf implants." So that's why you're a better basketball, Rogers.
Yeah, that's when all the fun rumors started about that and all sorts of fun stuff. Which, I'm sure Charles and I are grateful that social media wasn't around in 2004 because we would have gotten canceled for something fun.
But if
Um,
you're ever around Rogers, I just want you to take a look at the gigantar. I'm not even going to call them calves. I'm going to call them just wads. They're just giant, thick wads of mass
huh.
that
Well,
many NFL football players would just die for,
we
or
can't
Ronnie Coleman.
we can't end it on that.
Yes, we can.
Let's end it. Let's end it
You're
on
on
a
a loose cannon.
no, no. I
I'm
don't
just
want
kidding.
to. No, no. We can't end it on that. It has to end it. Okay, Charles. As far as like trends that have been set, do you feel like you were on the precipice of wearing vests?
I mean, not only do I wear vests, but I actually shave my chest hair and the V of it and
Oh,
that's so yes, I love a good vest. I thought
okay.
about wearing one today,
Yeah,
but I knew you'd say something, and you still said something.
I had
But
to. All right.
yes, I'm an investor in Snaps, and I'm only signing if they have on their agenda that they're going to be making vests with
Snaps vests.
snaps.
Fair enough.
So
The last question: how do we best support you and your movement? And this is going to probably release after February 14th,
yeah,
2024. What's the best way to support Charles, the best way to support AccuShield, and the best way to support the movement of sharing love with people that potentially have a little bit of loneliness in their life?
yeah, a lot of loneliness, and I think it's going. Yeah, the way that you can help me, Rogers, is if you are interested in volunteering at a community near your house and you're interested in giving back to a mother and a father, a brother or sister that lived their life, in many cases served. If it's a male, it's likely that they served if they're in their 80s and 90s, and you want to, participate in a worthy movement. Go to hashtag Project Love Meter, put that in your URL. It'll take you to a page. It'll explain what we're doing, and then you can sign up and be a volunteer. And then we'll reach out to you. And what we're going to do is we're going to match you with a resident with like interests. So if you're a volunteer and you're like, you know what, I like woodworking, I like old cars, and I was in the Navy, we want to match you with someone that has similar interests so that you have something to talk about. And so you have something to lead in. And it's an opportunity to 30 minutes change the life of someone who, in many cases, has changed the lives of others.
Dude, tell you what, that is power. AccuShield website, please.
AccuShield.com. But go to, yeah. But if you're, if you're interested in volunteering, it's #Project Love Meter.
Love it. Charles, I'm proud of you. I love you.
Love you, buddy.
You're such a steadfast leader, and you're good for success. You're great for success, and
Thanks, man.
I'm so glad to be able to share this story. And thanks for being a part of this today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.